I should have known something was wrong when I found the prenuptial agreement, the one we had both signed and notarized with a sense of optimistic pragmatism. Carefully altered in a safe I thought only I knew the combination to. The safe was a heavy, fireproof box, tucked away behind a false panel in my home office library, a relic from my more paranoid startup days. My name, David, was still there in stark black ink, but the beneficiary clauses for my multi-million-dollar tech startup, Ether Systems, had been subtly rerouted. The complex legal language now pointed to a trust I'd never heard of, a trust name with sentimental twist that felt like a deliberate slap in the face. The Buster Memorial Trust, named after Sarah's scruffy, long-deceased childhood terrier. It was a small change, almost invisible, the kind of thing you'd miss unless you were looking for it with a magnifying glass and a heart full of dread. I only was because our estate lawyer, a meticulous man named Mr. Albright, had called about an unrelated tax matter and mentioned a specific succession clause that I was certain, with every fiber of my being, had not existed before. I'm a 36-year-old software engineer by trade, but for the last decade, I've been the CEO and driving force behind Ether Systems. I built it from a dorm room project, a few thousand lines of code written on caffeine and ambition, into a recognized leader in predictive analytics for the financial sector. It was my life's work, my identity, my third child that never slept. Sarah, 34, was supposed to be my sanctuary from that high-stakes, cutthroat world. We'd been married for 6 years, and she was a charismatic, charming counterbalance to my more introverted, analytical nature. She handled our sprawling social calendar, our philanthropic endeavors with the city's art museum, and she possessed a seemingly innate talent for making our cold, modern home feel like a place of warmth and peace. Or so I had desperately wanted to believe. The discovery of the altered document sent a cold, paralyzing shock through my system, as if I had been doused in liquid nitrogen. I felt like I was debugging a piece of the most insidious, deeply embedded malicious code, a logic bomb that had been silently ticking away in the very core of my life. My first, primal instinct was to storm into the living room where she was calmly watching television and scream until my voice gave out. But the programmer in me, the part that solved problems through data and evidence, overruled the betrayed husband. I didn't confront her. Instead, I became a ghost, a specter in my own house, watching, waiting, and gathering data. I hired a discreet private investigator, a stoic, former military man named Miles who spoke in grunts and asked no questions, preferring to deliver his findings in cold, hard, factual reports. The retainer I paid him felt like a down payment on the funeral of my marriage. The facts, when they came, were devastating in their clarity. Sarah was not just unhappy or seeking attention. She was having a full-blown, deeply clandestine affair with my business partner, Mark. The photos Miles provided over the following week were grainy, taken from a long lens, but they were unmistakable. There they were, holding hands not in a quick, furtive grasp, but in a linked-finger intimacy as they walked through a secluded park on a Tuesday afternoon. Another showed them kissing with a familiar passion in the dim, orange light of a restaurant parking lot, a place I knew well, a place Sarah had told me she was having a book club dinner. The final, damning set showed them entering a sleek, downtown apartment building together, a building I knew Mark owned an investment property in, using a key fob and not looking back. Mark had been my friend since our sophomore year in college. We'd pulled all-nighters together, surviving on pizza and cheap coffee, dreaming of changing the world. We celebrated our first major contract, a $50,000 deal that felt like $1 billion, with cheap champagne that we sprayed all over our shabby rented office. We trusted each other with our professional lives, our reputations, our dreams. This betrayal was a physical blow, a nausea that settled so deep in my gut I thought it was permanent. It was a compound fractured soul. But the affair, as world-shattering as it was, turned out to be just a shimmering, deceptive surface, a much darker, deeper abyss. Miles, at my frantic urging, dug deeper. The Boston Memorial Trust wasn't just a name on a doctored document. It was a fully realized shell company, registered in Delaware, with a complex web of subsidiary accounts. And it had been slowly, methodically siphoning funds from ether systems for over 2 years. The methods were clever, designed to bypass our standard automated audits. Fabricated consultant fees for strategic market analysis from entities that didn't exist, inflated invoices from real vendors with the excess kickback to the trust, even a fake employee on the payroll with direct deposit information linked to one of the trust accounts. The amounts were not trivial. We were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, meticulously stolen in increments small enough to avoid immediate suspicion, but large enough to build a significant fortune. Mark, as the chief financial officer, had the access and the authority to approve these payments. Sarah, with her sharp, cunning mind for strategy that I had so admired, clearly had the plan. They weren't just stealing my heart and my friendship. They were methodically dismantling my life's work and pilfering it, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, like termites eating away at the foundation of a house until it was ready to collapse. Armed with this horrific knowledge, I started paying excruciating attention to details I'd previously dismissed or ignored. Sarah's charity galas and weekend spa trips with the girls often coincided with Ether's quarterly board meetings that Mark would conveniently cut short, citing a prior personal commitment. Her sudden intense interest in the fine print of our joint financial portfolio 6 months ago, asking pointed questions about stock vesting schedules and liquidity events, now seemed not like wifely concern, but like corporate espionage. The way she and Mark would sometimes share a glance across our dinner table, a quick, silent exchange that I had naively mistaken for sheer amusement at one of my nerdy, technical jokes, now made my skin crawl. I saw it for what it was, the silent, smug communication of co-conspirators. The emotional whiplash was unbearable, a constant, nauseating roller coaster. One moment, I was burning with a white-hot rage, mentally rehearsing the confrontation, the precise, cutting words I would use to flay them both verbally. The next, I was crushed by a profound, debilitating grief, mourning the death of the marriage I thought I had, the friendship I believed was unbreakable. I felt like the world's greatest fool, the brilliant coder who could architect systems to predict global market trends, the visionary CEO who could command a room of seasoned investors, had been completely and utterly blind to conspiracy unfolding in his own home and office. I knew a simple confrontation would lead to lies, denials, and more clever manipulations. I needed an undeniable, in the act confession. I decided to code a trap for them, to create a honeypot they couldn't resist. I spent a weekend in the office alone, fabricating an entire presentation for a potential breakthrough project, a clandestine, top-secret government contract that would, according to my fabricated projections, triple the company's valuation overnight. I filled it with enough technical jargon and plausible financials to make it irresistible. I made it seem like the most sensitive, confidential information in the company's history, the golden ticket. I then left a single, tantalizingly named, encrypted file on my personal home computer, Project Chimera _financials _LS. With a password I knew Sarah had seen me use for non-critical files like our household budget. I then told Mark, and only Mark, in a hushed, excited tone during a private Monday morning meeting, that I was taking a mental health day on Wednesday to refine the presentation away from office distractions, knowing with grim certainty that he would immediately alert Sarah. The bait was taken with an eagerness that was both satisfying and soul-crushing. That Wednesday evening, I pretended to be asleep, my body tense as a coiled spring. I heard the subtle shift of Sarah's weight beside me, the soft, careful pat of her bare feet on the hardwood floor, the faint, almost inaudible click of my office door closing. I lay in the dark, counting the seconds, my heart hammering against my ribs like a frantic prisoner. After 10 agonizing minutes, I slipped out of bed and walked silently down the hall. The office door was slightly ajar, a sliver of blue-white light cutting across the dark hallway. I saw her there, silhouetted by the monitor's glow, her posture one of intense concentration. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, and a small, sleek USB drive was plugged into the port. She was so focused, so intent on her digital theft, that she was completely oblivious to my presence. "Find anything interesting?" I asked, my voice dangerously, unnaturally calm. She jumped violently, spinning around in the leather chair, her face a perfect canvas of shock that rapidly morphed into a panicked, wide-eyed defiance. "David, I couldn't sleep. I had a sudden idea for the museum fundraiser and was just checking my email. On my computer, with a drive that Miles confirmed contains a keylogger and data-scraping spyware plugged into it. I nodded toward the innocuous-looking USB stick. I had him install a little something on that last week. It's been mirroring every keystroke, every file access, on this machine for days. And it's been cross-referencing with a mirror clone of Mark's work laptop. We have everything." Her face fell, the mass of innocence shattering into 1,000 pieces. The blood drained from her cheeks, leaving her pale and suddenly looking much older. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think I understand perfectly," I said, stepping fully into the room, the door clicking shut behind me. "I understand you're systematically stealing from me. I understand you're sleeping with my best friend and business partner. I understand you were trying to alter legal documents to steal control of my company. What part of this elaborate scheme am I missing, Sarah? The why? Is it just the money? Or was our entire marriage, from the very beginning, just an elaborately staged long con?" Tears started to stream down her face, but they no longer had the power to move me. They felt performative, a weapon she was pulling out of a well-used arsenal. "You were never here, David," she cried, her voice rising into a hysterical pitch. "Your company, your code, your servers, they were your real wife, your real children. I was just furniture, a beautiful piece of art to decorate your life and show off at your parties. Mark saw me. He appreciated me. He listened to me. Appreciated you enough to help you rob me blind?" I shot back, my calm finally fracturing, the rage bubbling to the surface. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This isn't just about us, about our home. This is about the company, the 100+ employees who depend on it for their livelihoods, their families, their mortgages. Everything we built is tainted by your greed." "What you built," she screamed, suddenly standing up, her fists clenched at her sides, her tears now ones of pure fury. "It was always about you, your vision, your genius, your legacy. I was just a trophy wife you trotted out at parties to make you look like a well-rounded human being. Well, I wanted a piece of it, a real piece. I earned a piece of it, putting up with your absences, your boring, endless tech talk, your complete and utter emotional absence. You're a robot, David, and I was tired of being married to machine." The venom in her words was staggering. It was a confession not of a momentary lapse, but of a deep-seated, festering resentment I never knew existed. We stood there, staring at each other across the vast, impassable chasm of the ruined life we had shared. The silence that followed was heavier than any noise, broken only by the frantic buzz of my phone on the desk. I glanced at it. It was a text from Miles. "He's on his way. ETA 15 minutes. Car is registered to him." Mark. I had instructed Miles to leak a fake, panic text to Mark from a burner phone, suggesting Sarah had been caught looking at the files and was spiraling, saying she was going to tell me everything. I knew Mark, the control freak, the master of the narrative, would come running to contain the situation. 20 minutes later, the front door opened and Mark's voice, laced with forced, casual concern, called out, "Sarah? Honey, are you okay?" Your text sounded frantic. "What's going on?" He walked into the office and froze mid-step when he saw me. The color drained from his face, leaving a sickly gray pallor. "David, I thought you were having a mental health day." I finished for him, my voice dripping with contempt. It's been incredibly illuminating. I see you two couldn't wait to get your hands on my new project. The Chimera file must have been very enticing. Mark, ever the smooth talker, the charmer who could talk investors out of fears, tried to recover. He forced a laugh that came out as a strangled cough. "David, buddy, this isn't what it looks like." Sarah called me. She was upset. She said you were acting paranoid, and she was worried about you. She asked him to come over, and his eyes darted between Sarah and me, searching for a lifeline. "Save it, Mark." I snapped, cutting him off and holding up my phone. "I have everything. The financial transfers to the Buston Memorial Trust, the encrypted emails you two thought were so clever, the photos from the park, the apartment building." The keylogger captured Sarah downloading the spyware from an email you sent her. "It's over. The game is up." The confrontation that followed was ugly, a spectacle of cowardice and blame shifting that was both pathetic and, in a dark way, satisfyingly conclusive. They turned on each other with the ferocity of trapped rats. Mark immediately blamed Sarah, calling her a sociopathic seductress who had preyed on his vulnerabilities, who had come up with the entire embezzlement plan and manipulated him into it. Sarah, in turn, screamed at him for his weakness, for his lies, and then turned her fury back on me, blaming my chronic neglect, my emotional vacancy, for driving her into Mark's arms and for justifying her actions. They were a perfect, toxic mirror of each other, each trying to claw their way to the moral high ground from the depths of their own filth. It was the most clarifying moment of my life. The love, the friendship, the shared history, it had all been a beautiful, fragile illusion. This, the raw, ugly truth of greed, spite, and self-preservation, was a reality. I let them exhaust themselves. When their shouting subsided into ragged breaths and silent, hateful glares, I spoke, my voice cold and flat, the voice I use when terminating a dishonest employee. "Get out," I said. "Both of you. Get out of my house." They stared at me, stunned into silence. "My lawyers will be in contact with each of you in the morning. You will find that your access to all Ether System servers, financial accounts, and physical premises has been revoked, effective immediately. If either of you attempts to access any company property or tries to transfer a single cent from any account, personal or otherwise, I will not hesitate to forward this entire dossier to the district attorney's office. I will press criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage, and anything else our legal team can dream up. I will bury you both so deep you will never see daylight again. Now, get out." The divorce was a brutal, protracted war, but I held all the ammunition, controlled the battlefield, and had the will to see it through to the end. With the mountain of evidence Miles and I had gathered, their lawyers, after the initial bluster, advised them to settle quickly and quietly. Sarah, stripped of her illusions and her source of funds, signed the post-nuptial agreement, which was now ironclad and heavily favored me, in exchange for a one-time modest settlement, a mere fraction of what she would have been entitled to had she simply remained faithful or even just left honestly. She moved out of state shortly after, and the last I heard through the grapevine, she was living in a modest apartment in a Midwestern city, her grand ambitions of wealth and power reduced to a bitter cautionary tale. Mark was forced to resign from Ether Systems in disgrace. He sold his shares back to the company at a significant discount, as per the shareholder agreement he had blatantly violated. The scandal, though contained, leaked enough to blacklist him from the upper echelons of the tech finance world. No board directors want a CFO with a proven history of betrayal. He faded into obscurity, a ghost of a friend I once knew. I sold a house. I couldn't bear to be in those empty, echoing rooms anymore, every corner whispering memories that now felt like lies. I poured myself back into ether systems, but this time it was different. I wasn't running from a hollow home. I was building a new foundation for myself and the company, one based on rigorous scrutiny, verified trust, and a healthy, necessary dose of paranoia. I promoted a brilliant, fiercely loyal, and impeccably ethical woman from within the analytics department to be the new CFO. Her first act was to implement the new, draconian financial oversight protocols I had designed myself. It's been 2 years now. The company is stronger, more profitable, and more secure than ever. I've started dating again, cautiously, taking my time, being transparent about my past and my boundaries. The experience left me scarred, a permanent cynic in a world that relentlessly preaches optimism and blind trust. But I've made my peace with that. I'd rather be a cautious, clear-eyed cynic than a blind, trusting fool. Sometimes, late at night when the code won't compile and the city is quiet, I think about Sarah and Mark. I don't feel the burning anger anymore, just a cold, distant pity. They had to share a real, thriving, legitimate dream. They were partners in a success story. But they were so consumed by their own bottomless greed and petty resentment that they tried to steal the whole thing for themselves. And in their desperate, clumsy attempt to grab it all, they lost everything. The money, the status, the friendship, and ultimately, each other. The most secure, elegantly coded system in the world can still be brought down by a fundamental, catastrophic flaw in the one piece of proprietary code you thought you could trust unconditionally: the unpredictable, often treacherous human heart.